When I say the word coral reefs, you'll be wondering or you'll be thinking about you are in the tropical waters, snorkeling in the oceanic waters of the tropical regions, isn't it? But when I say tropical coral reefs, when I say about deep water corals, I don't mean by the tropical corals at all. This is what I'll be discussing today. Hello everyone, welcome to Super Coaching UPSC by Textbook. This is Venkatesh. In this session, we'll be discussing about a very significant and a very different topic called as deep water corals. Where are they found? What is the significance of that? And all that information associated with the deep water corals. So what are these deep water corals? How are they different from the marine, the tropical coral reefs which we imagine like the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, right? We'll discuss all those kind of things. So what are deep water corals? I would say that uh, deep water corals are, we can also call them as, just a minute, yeah. We can also call them as cold water corals, which are usually found even at the temperatures of around 4 degrees Celsius at greater depths. So cold water corals are corals found at cooler temperatures at greater depths near the seabed, which we all have imagined that there will be no life for many thousands of years. We have seen that. We have imagined that on the deep sea bed, there would be no life because they would be far away from the photosynthetic algae. So we don't find any kind of photosynthesis. Sun is far away, sunlight is far away. We have imagined that there would be no life at all. But the life which is there here is much more diverse. Or in fact, the scientists claim that the diversity which is found in the deep water corals is much more diverse than the tropical corals, and it is also much more bigger, which we assume about the tropical corals than the tropical corals. So usually when I say about the tropical corals, the shallow water corals, we'll say that these are the greatest biodiversity hotspots of the world. In fact, they are called as tropical ocean. We'll call them as what? We'll call them as something like say the tropical rainforests of the ocean. But when you see about the diversity of the deep water corals with this cold water, it is also decently high. So that's why the scientists were amazed, and that is the reason why a general understanding of deep water corals are needed. And recently, why it is in news? Because scientists have recently discovered vast extensions of the deep water coral. In fact, the deepest coral have been discovered along the coast of Norway, recently, which led to the depth understanding, which led to the need for understanding of this topic. In fact, such deep water corals are known to the humans only in the last 200-300 years as per the estimates given, and our understanding about deep water corals is increasing day by day, right? So the first thing which you need to remember about deep water corals is these are not the tropical corals. Tropical corals are the shallow corals which you found near the coastline, where we go for tourism as part of the snorkeling. So, for example, there is a word called snorkeling which you do from the surface. Scuba diving is going into the interior, going into the depths of the water beyond the surface. But even if you go for scuba diving, you can see the sunlight here, right? You can see the light coming up. So there is decent amount of natural light. Whereas when you talk about the cold water corals, they are far away from the sunlight. That is what you need to remember. These are not deep water. Tropical corals are, so please remember, tropical corals. These are different from deep water or cold water corals. right? So please understand, this is the first point. Then further you can talk about what are deep water corals and all. We'll discuss about it. So recently, as I was telling you, scientists have discovered the cold water corals in the of the coast of Norway, the largest corals. Let me give a sample of that video of the cold water corals, the video which was recently in news, and then we will go back to our discussion. Okay, just go through this channel. You can see here.
Once again, how little we know about our oceans. The world's largest deep sea coral reef has been discovered just off the southeast coast of the United States. The 6.4 million acre deep sea reef is bigger than Vermont and took researchers 10 years to map out. Located in the Atlantic waters off the coast of Georgia and
This was talking about work of the yeah, I'll discuss.
The reef is primarily made up of stony coral that lives in deep, cold water. Since there's no sunlight at those depths, the coral survives by filter feeding rather than relying on growth of other organisms through photosynthesis. The study highlights just how much we have to discover.
Is it amazing? Isn't it?
The lead author of the study says about 75% of the oceans aren't mapped.
Right. So this is the base. Right. So recently they have found it in Norway as well, in the coast of Norway. This was in a video which was found even in USA. So what we are trying to tell you here is, nobody will ask you where it is found. They will be asking here in terms of, because the unknowns are quite more here. So you need not be worried about where are they found. You just need to have a basic idea. So let us understand the difference between cold water corals and the tropical corals. Okay, so cold water corals and tropical corals. Let us understand the difference. So usually when you talk about temperature of the tropical corals, which are very nearer to the surface. First of all, try to understand what are corals. Yeah. So when you talk about the corals, nothing but these are calcium carbonate structures. Calcium carbonate structures, isn't it? So they are formed out of the calcium and they are formed out of the calcium carbonate as part of the carbon coming from the atmosphere, as well the H2O in the end. These are group of calcium carbonate structures which we call it as polyps. These are animals. These are what? Animals. Right. These are the animals. Usually you will find the temperatures very, very less, even at the temperature of 4 degrees Celsius. Whereas tropical corals you will find at 20 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius. You will find that. So temperatures are much, much lesser in the cold waters, and these are found deeper parts of the ocean, even on the sea bed, and this is the shallow part of the ocean. So very shallow part, usually we will find that continental shelf, very, very, very near to the surface. Okay, so depth. So this is an idea of depth, even to the seabed. So this is the seabed, this is the seabed, and this is the continental shelf. And when you talk about the presence of algae, no. Here, yes. Right. Right. So no, this is very, very important. Corals are algae. In fact, the variety of diversity which we see on the tropical corals, it is all because of algae, isn't it? So this is one kind of a point you need to remember. There is no algae. Do you find cold water corals sunlight here? No. Sunlight? No. So here, yes. That is the reason why only they are very near to the shallow water. So yes, so please understand these are the four most basic points about cold water corals, which are how are they different from tropical corals. Where are they found? Cold water, so temperatures nearer to 0 degrees Celsius. Then you have sunlight? No. You have algae? No. Deeper portion. These are the basic points. Then some more additional points also we can be discussing about that. For example, I have taken a picture from some of the research which is carried out about the cold water corals. You can see here cold water corals. Where are they found here? In fact, this is number of states, distribution and all. It is keeping on increasing, and the coverage still there were not yet studies. You have Norwegian waters. There is a decent amount of cold waters. We are still not aware. We are still learning about it. Temperature range you see 4 to 13 degrees Celsius. Here you see 20 to 29 degrees Celsius. So decent amount of temperature. Depth, much more larger depth is what you need to remember, 39 to 1000 meters. And here you see for the warm water corals only around the 100 meters depth, because if you go away from the coral, away from this 100 meters, no sunlight cannot go beyond 100 meters. Even 100 meters is also very high. I would say mostly it is the 50 meters. Few can spread across even to 75 meters, 80 meters, right? Then what is the source of nutrition? The source of nutrition for the cold water corals is the organic matter suspended in the deep sea matter. Organic matter, right? So cold water coral nutrition is organic matter. What is the source of nutrition? This is another important point. Right. So when you talk about the nutrition for cold water corals and the warm water corals, which are called as tropical corals. For the warm water corals, the source of nutrition is nothing but, you can say, the algae, which prepares the food. That is the source of nutrition using the sunlight, photosynthesis and all. Whereas for the nutrition, the cold water corals, the source of nutrition is expected to be marine kinds of organisms, marine organisms, or some kind of marine sediments, some marine animal sediments which are traveled by the ocean currents. Ocean currents take some organic material, oceanic currents will bring the organic matter. So this is what you can say, marine organisms, the oceanic currents will bring the oceanic matter. So what you see, usually the suspended organic matter and zooplanktons are there. Those what are the things which can be taken by the things, right? The symbiotic algae which live in the relationship, corals and the algae, that is not definitely observed. Okay. So some kind of organic matter, some kind of algae, you can say the difference here. Algae, no. So mostly here what we are talking about is symbiotic algae is definitely not found. In fact, this is the right word. In fact, this is also a bone of contention as well. It can become a bone of contention. What we can say is symbiotic algae is definitely not found. Some other algae, but this algae nature would be very different from this. At least understand from the nature. Okay. Okay, that is the thing. Life can be found. That I cannot ignore. Life can be found, but the symbiotic algae is not found. So you maybe if you talk about this here, symbiotic algae, that is definitely not found. Okay. So moving further, when you talk about this, what more things you find? Where do you find it? Usually this is the base. When you talk about the this is the difference. Where do you find the coral reefs? Where do you find the deep water corals? Scientists have studied the tropical water, the ocean, the deep waters of Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, they found everywhere. So I would say that they found as of now. First of all, understanding the mapping the ocean floor is very, very limited. Mapping the ocean floor is still limited. We hardly know about the deep waters. When you hardly know about the deep waters, more than 75 to 80% of the deep waters is still unknown. Okay, more than 75% is still unknown. So when you don't know about this thing, how can I talk about distribution? So that's why I'm saying distribution is a very uh, a tricky topic for this, a tricky kind of a topic for this kind of deep water corals, because we haven't yet understood it completely. That is a work in progress. So as of now, what you found is, we have found in Atlantic, we have found in Pacific, we have found even in the Indian Ocean. It is just that the recent news which was there about the deepest world largest sea deep water corals was found in the region of Norway, right? So that is part of the Atlantic coast. And if you have seen some kind of a mapping, I have observed that the deep water corals were found in some of the places of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and all, and also in the USA coast, around the USA coast, along the California region as well, and as well as even on the eastern coast. Both sides there were some studies. Then what are the challenges which it can come across? Challenges to coral reefs. Recently, when you have recently, when there is so much talk about deep sea mining, deep sea mining, you would find that it is a very important, it could be a potential threat. Presently, it is not yet a threat because there is no deep sea mining, but potential threat, this is what I would say is potential threat, because there is no present deep sea mining significantly we are doing. In fact, one thing about the deep water corals is, what we came to know about is, they are very old. They are very old. Studies about them provide them proper geological history. So this is because when you try to disturb these deep water corals, what the possible prospect of geological history would be lost. This is very key, right? Geological history. Then the present thing we can say about climate change is a threat, because when you talk about temperatures, if there is an increase of the temperatures, that might lead to an impact in the tolerance level of each animal, and certain animals can definitely die. The thing about these corals is, these things cannot migrate. No, mostly they are not known for migration. You will see that they will get stabilized at one place. They are usually structures which cannot be moving, not like an animal or not like a bird which can fly, right? So because of that, they can have an impact of their vulnerabilities would be high towards a slight increase in climate change. So climate change is one. Then you will also find that because of the climate change, this thing is increasing. Because of also, which is also increasing, was because of the climate. Another important thing associated with climate change we can say is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification. What do you mean by ocean acidification here? Usually, oceans are basic, right? The number is moving towards acidity. So if you see the general pH value of the oceans, it would be basic only. But that basic number is decreasing towards 7. So usually 0 to 7, we can call it as acidic in nature, beyond 7, basic in nature. So we are moving towards 7. So from around 8.4 to 8, we are moving towards that side. So that's where we can say that ocean acidification is changing the calcium carbonates and all. It will change actually the development of the corals. So ocean acidification is very dangerous, both to the warm water corals as well as the deep water corals. So as the climate change. And another particular potential threat for the cold water corals is deep sea mining, which is usually in use, the potential threat, right? Also, what you also have observed about the other important things is other man-made things, say, for example, Mining, oil and gas discovery, mining, that is also very, very dangerous. You can talking about the nature of fishing. Usually the fishing practice, one of the method of fishing practice is there are certain kinds of chemicals which you throw into the ocean to attract the fishes, which will be easy to catch hold. Fishing practice. There are some kind of unsustainable fishing practices which you do. Trolley fishing, another trolley fishing is you will try to wipe out the corals while you are trying to catch it out. That is also usually very, very dangerous. So fishing, mining, all such kind of things are very, very dangerous. So these things are a usual threat to the corals. So please remember the points which I have told you. Please remember they are very, very old. Please remember how do they are different from the cold water corals are different from the warm water corals. There is a possible MCQ which can be prepared out of this, right? I hope you all have understood about the corals, the deep water corals in detail. You got a basic understanding about this. And with this, if they ask you about what is the possible, another important thing I have always tried to tell you is, just a minute, let me add the slide. So if you see it here, right. So if you see about the what is the significance of any kind of ecosystem, they can also ask you about the significance of the coral reefs, deep water corals. For any topic, significance, for any ecosystem based topic, if they ask you about significance, always remember there is a very, very simple basic brainstorming which I am trying to provide is nothing but ecosystem services. Ecosystem services. So what do you mean by ecosystem services here? Ecosystem services. What do you mean by ecosystem services? The services which are rendered by a particular ecosystem. Every ecosystem will try to provide provisioning services. What do you mean by provisioning services? Which they provide, say like food, say like medicine, right? So because even the deep water corals are known for good amount of wide variety of what to say, why they are known, that these regions are known for supporting wide variety of deep sea animals, be it the octopus, be it around the sharks and all. You have seen decent amount of food here. So you can see here deep water corals. So what kind of food you can see here? They are supporting things like, sharks, octopus, such kind of things. So they do provide the basic things. Then we can have about the, cultural services. So as of now, maybe they are not part of the tourism. Future development, you can do it. This is presently met. Maybe this can be a different separate for topic, we can say. So when you talk about ecosystem services, you have provision services, you have something like as supporting services, right? In fact, they support the ecosystem of deep waters. You can see they are part of the unknown deep water ecosystem. They are part of the nutrient cycling here. The nutrients are being recycled and all. So just like on the surface, when the corals are the shallow water corals, which we see, they're part of the circulating the nutrients and all. Even these these deep water corals are also not for part of the unknown deep water ecosystem, which will be also helping in the circulating of the nutrients. So when you talk about the corals, the same significance, you can talk about these kind of things: provisioning services, supporting services, and all. I hope all of you are following this, right? I hope you are able to get into the basic things here. So how they are different from the deep water corals, what is the significance and all. Right. Right. So when you talk about these kind of things also, you can also talk about the remaining things like regulating services. Right. Regulating services. What do you mean by regulating? So as I told you, provisioning services, products obtained from the ecosystem. What kind of products are you obtaining from it? Then what kind of regulation? They might be part of the climatic regulation, they might be part of the nutrient recycling, they might be part of the particular ecosystem here. So generally any ecosystem, we can divide this into provisioning, supporting, regulating, and cultural. So this is one kind of topic. I hope all of you haven't have any doubts. Let me see any comments. Whoever has raised any doubts, you can always ask me such kind of doubts. Let me see the comments. Generally, any ecosystem, we can divide this into provisioning, supporting, right. Yes, Shubham, Jai Ganesh, and all. Have you have any doubts still? Is that clear? Shubham, Ganesh, have you understood this point now? Right? Yeah. So Shubham Chore says biodiversity, climate, food chain, and all. These are the things. Am I clear? Do you have any particular doubt about this topic now? Right. See, any particular topic about geography and ecosystem, you will see that what are the conditions needed for that ecosystem. They will be asking about a conditions based question. They might ask you about how they are different from deep water corals are different from cold water. That we have told you. Distribution we have studied. A general thing about significance, the possible threat and all. Then what would be the conclusion here? Ultimately, any topic as we are learning, it is always meant for conclusion. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is, the conclusion I can make about this topic is our understanding about deep water corals has to improve significantly so that it will be a good natural history which can be preserved, as I told you, and at the same time, it is a testament to the fact that nature is always the boss. Nature will give you multiple varieties. It is testament to the idea that when you are trying to go beyond the nature, yes, we can always develop the nature using man-made. You can always develop new things, technology from the man-made things as such. But when you are talking about any kind of a natural ecosystem, often we should not ignore the perils of destroying a natural ecosystem is what my crux is. So what is my conclusion is, there has to be deeper studies of understanding about deep water corals to understand the what is their significance as such, and so that any activity which is directly in conflict with respect to the preservation of the traditional ecosystems like or the ecosystems like deep waters should be banned, should be halted, should be regulated properly. So if it is a necessity, you have to go forward. For example, in the present era of conflict with climate change with respect to renewable conflict with the climate change, deep sea mining is seen as an alternative to climate change. When that is the case, you should make it sure that deep sea mining is a potential solution to climate change, but you should not be having any kind of negative consequences on the ecosystem of deep water corals. That is why proper studies are needed. So what is the conclusion you can write? You can write a conclusion in this way. Deep water corals are needed to be studied further so that the complex interrelationship between deep water corals, the need for deep sea mining, and the present management of climate change, all these things can be resolved once you have the adequate knowledge about it. That is what you can conclude with. Hope you all have understood this thing, right? So what I am trying to tell you here is, once again, deep water corals, more studies are needed. Why? To understand the complex relationship. What is the complexity here? Complexity among deep water coral protection. I am connecting with this topic with respect to deep sea mining, the perceived solution to climate change. See, ultimately my focus is on more studies are needed. So what I'm trying to tell you is, the challenge which you get out of deep water corals, the man-made challenge, which is a possible threat, potential threat, deep sea mining, but that is very necessity, because you are saying that it's an elimination of climate change. So this is an example. Simple way, if you are unable to link this kind of complexity, you simply say that there are more studies needed to be understanding about deep water corals. That's it. Remaining you can ignore. This is what the topic is about. I hope you all have understood this topic. Whatever the content I have given you, if you want the PDF file of this topic, you can get into the Telegram channel. And once again, I am mentioning to you, it is meant for debating and discussing with me and resolution of your doubts. So always use this platform. By scanning the QR, you can get into the channel, and this channel is an opportunity for you to resolve any kind of doubts in geography. Right then, thank you all of you. Yes, Shubham Chore says, same thing applies on hybrid seeds too. Not sure about negative effects in terms required more study. Yes, very good. Hybrid studies and all, hybrid seeds and all, studies are needed further because of their harmful impacts on the ecosystem. But there is a decent knowledge about hybrid seeds and their possible impacts, but there is not that much amount of decent knowledge about the perceived undersea ecosystems, underwater ecosystems. That's why we are calling for more studies. I do get your point, Shubham, that when you have said that deep sea hybrid seeds also more studies are needed. We do need it. We do need such kind of more studies, more authenticated studies as such. But having said that, there is still decent. There is more vacuum, yes, even in that. But when you compare with this, there is much more vacuum. For example, we understand about hybrid seeds, say around 50%, 50% vacuum is there. But our understanding about deep water corals is less than 10-20, it is around 10-20%, there is more vacuum. That's what I am trying to mention. Okay then, thank you all of you. Hope you have liked this video. If you have any doubts, please put it in the comment section here as well, or in the Telegram channel to resolve, and share it to as many people as possible so that they understand this topic. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Okay then, once again we'll come with a new topic tomorrow. Until then, have a safe time, be safe and enjoy the preparation. Happy learnings to all of you. Thank you.